do not give indie games an inch of slack. I love indie games, I love good ones, and I think we should go out of our way to support them if the games are good, but if the games are bad, we should be every bit as critical of them as we would of a AAA title. I've written and read a lot of articles about indie games, and there are usually three groups of people who sort of comment on such articles. There's either people who hate all indie games because there's something different and they can't handle that, so they think it's stupid. There are people who like the games that are good and hate the games that are bad, which is reasonable. And there are people who like all indie games, and with the bad ones, they sort of have this wishy-washy, begrudging respect for them, even though they kind of suck because, hey, it's just one guy in his basement, what can you ask for? For example, I recently wrote an article about Blueberry Garden that's out on Steam and won the IGF Awards for 2009. And one of the comments came from a guy named Wex, who was very good-natured, I'm sure, in what he was trying to say, but it's some stuff I want to discuss. He said, for people saying that the art in the game is bad, I'm paraphrasing, so one guy that's working on a whole project is supposed to be able to do incredible art and make this intellectually beautiful game? Man, you guys have high expectations. Jonathan Blow spent a lot of time and money looking for an artist for Braid, and I'm sure as Fedang, or however you pronounce the guy's name, had spent as much time and money as Blow did, I'm sure the art would look just as good. So get over yourself, it's indie. You're not really supposed to care about the quality of the graphics anyway, you're supposed to look at them and say, how does this reflect the message the developer is trying to tell me? And while there's a lot of truth to what he's saying, and I agree with the basic idea at the end of, what is the art trying to say, not so much as is it pretty, there's still this sort of subconscious undercurrent of forgiveness that the game hasn't really earned if you think the art is actually bad, which subconsciously it seems to be suggesting, yeah, the art is kind of bad, but it's still whatever, it's an indie game and you didn't spend a lot of money on it. I don't think this is the right attitude to have toward indie games, to assume that indie games are inherently inferior to AAA titles, so that when an indie game just happens to have shitty graphics or does something shittily, then, well, it's okay just because they don't have a huge group of people and they didn't spend 3 years on it, because it's sort of disrespectful to all the games that did have 3 years spent on them and are really good. It's disrespectful to the World of Goose and the Braid and so on and so forth. That point of view kind of seems to imply that being independent means that you intrinsically can't make really spectacular stuff that can compete with big budget AAA titles, which I think is completely untrue, because really, really great games have been made that can do that. And to give them this forgiveness, to give them this cushion of saying, well, you're indie, so it's okay if you suck, basically cheapens those few indie games that come out and break out of the mold of just being regular games that become great, become something amazing that transcends the fact that they are indie games. It doesn't even matter because they're just fucking good in general terms. The onus isn't on us as gamers to forgive indie devs for making mistakes. The onus is on the indie devs to make better games. So, if the independent game movement is trying to get as much credibility, not only within the gaming industry, but in games as art in general, then it has to be held up to the same critical standards as a game from Blizzard or EA or whatever. I mean, let's say you got an indie game that wants to make realistic character models. Really, really, really pretty realistic character models that look just like the real thing. And it turns out they fail because they're indie and they don't really have the budget to afford that kind of shit, and they end up screwing it up. The reaction, I don't think, should be, which I hear a lot from very indie-friendly commenters or bloggers or whatever, shouldn't be, well, it's okay, they tried, it's understandable, they yearned for something better and they failed, but it's just because they're indie, it's just because they're a couple guys. Well, no, fuck it. If you can't do something, then don't do it. Do it something different. Like the guy who made Gravity Bone could have tried to make all the characters in that game look really, really photorealistic, but he knew that he wouldn't be able to get 100% of what he wanted by doing that. So instead, he made them all look like boxy papercraft figures, and that worked out really well. The guys behind Lugaru and Overgrowth, they could have tried to make really realistic-looking character models, but they didn't because humans, why humans? Instead, they made this game about bunnies fighting each other, and it looks fine from what I can tell. Being indie, or making good games in general, making good art in general, is about limitations and understanding limitations and getting great stuff out of those limitations. I think Orson Welles said that the enemy of art is an absence of limitations, or something along those lines. And if the argument is, well, it's okay for indies not to be able to succeed at these really big things just because they're indies, then that's like giving up on one of the great things about being indies, having these limitations, but also having freedom to work within those limitations any way you see fit. So if an indie game sucks, it just sucks, and it's the person who made that game's fault. It's not our fault that they're indie, and we shouldn't forgive them just for being indie. Indie developers don't, or shouldn't at least, strive to make games that are good for being an indie game. They want to make good games, just good period, regardless of who made it, regardless of whether or not the person playing it knows that it was made by 5 people or 50. It's not supposed to matter because there are games that are just plain good, like I said, World of Goo, Braid, Cave Story. These kinds of games are just plain fucking good, and to forgive these people for being lazy, it gives them an out that they don't deserve. Indie games don't have any reason to be any less polished or any less intuitive or any less creative than regular games do. If anything, they should be more because they're not held down by all this financial bullshit and all the publishing contracts and investors and stuff like that. I mean, and furthermore, that kind of forgiveness, that kind of, well, it's okay, you're just indie, it's not really helpful to most indie devs, I don't think, and it doesn't make them feel good, at least. I mean, would you really want to spend 1 to 3 years of your life making a game that when it finally came out, people went, well, I guess it's all right for an indie game? You wanted them to treat it as a real game and engage it on that level, because that's the kind of game you wanted to make. It's kind of disrespectful and condescending to say, well, it's an indie game, so I'm going to engage it on the level of it being an indie game and rate it according to that. No, rate it on the level of being a good game, and if it fails, it fails. Fuck them. Anybody who takes the quality of their game seriously should have put that effort into the game to make it feel like a just plain good game. And if they didn't take the quality of their game seriously, fuck them. Then their game's shit, and they can go to hell and make Mechos Wars. But this isn't to suggest that you should sort of do away with that really awesome, encouraging glee, like when you really like a game to begin with, and then you also get to say, hey, it was made by one guy, like Braid or whatever, or hey, it was made by one dude while he was in fucking high school, like Lugaru. I mean, there's something great about that too, but I would hate to see that kind of mentality, make someone give a few more points to an indie game in a review, or to use it to glare up, to cover over a bunch of really glaring design flaws that are part of the game. I wouldn't want that to happen, and I definitely wouldn't want people to treat my game that way, the game I made. I mean, I think if you love an indie game, you should love it, and if you hate an indie game, you should hate it, and that's the way you can only treat any piece of art, really. That's the fucking you bitch.